Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hi everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute, but first, my name is Kira Newman. Welcome to our Protect Black Women panel and discussion. I'm going to have my panelists introduce themselves before we get started with our questions. Wesley, if you want to start.
Peace and love, everybody. I hope everybody enjoying this Friday. Thank God it's Friday after a long week. Oh my goodness. But my name is Wesley Watson. I he, him, his pronouns. I'm a political and community organizer and a public health organizer. I really want to thank the Greater Grand Rapids NAACP Youth Council for having this important discussion. Thank you.
Charnel, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. And just like Wesley, just thank God it's Friday. I started my spring break, y'all, because I'm a high school teacher. Praise God. So again, my name is Charnel James. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Like I said, I am a high school teacher. I moved from the Greater Grand Rapids community. That's where I'm originally from. I moved out to the Detroit area. I work at Arts and Technology Academy of Pontiac as a high school social studies teacher. Outside of that, I am a blogger, and I have a blog about it's called Dear Self-Care, which talks about the importance of Black mental health and self-care in our community. And I'm excited for this discussion because I'm always saying, protect Black women. As you see my shirt, Black women matter. So we're going to have a real good discussion. And thank you guys for even allowing me to come on today.
Yes, thank you for joining us. And then Jeanette, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Jeanette Rhodes. I was the former president of the Ohio State chapter NAACP in 2019. Currently, I am the founder of ManaHerbalCare.com, which is a holistic marketplace that sells different self-care products. So, Charnel, I definitely will be in contact with you after today's show. Once again, very excited to be here. I know this will be a great discussion.
Thank you. And thank you all of my panelists for taking time out of your day to join this discussion. To get started, we have seen the phrase protect Black women online, in social media, and also in different discussions and dialogues such as this one. How would you guys define the phrase protect Black women? Charnel, we can start with you.
I was reaching like, should I unmute or should I wait? So yes, like you said, we've been hearing this topic of protect Black women, I want to say like all year, all during the pandemic, the quarantine. And to me, when I hear those words, protect Black women, I'm just hearing we need to be protected. It says it right there. Just protect us, because as Black women, we tend to have to be the strong and the back and carry our communities, carry our men, our families. And oftentimes we're not even protected by the ones that we're supporting, right? When you hear things as such as what happened with Megan Thee Stallion, she's being shot by a Black man. The first thing that she does when she comes out and say, hey, I was unprotected and I was shot by someone that's supposed to protect me, the first thing that the media do is, oh, she's a liar, oh, she's this, and oh, she's that. That becomes a point to where as women, as Black women, we begin to start suppressing our voices and not speaking up on issues that we need to. Not even speaking about the physical abilities of protecting Black women, but protecting us spiritually. It's protecting us mentally, emotionally, because we need that support here when it comes from our male counterparts and even our white counterparts. If you say that we don't need allies, like Tamika Mallory said, we need you guys to come on and work and do this work with us when it comes to various topics of social injustice. So that's what protecting Black women means to me, just coming together and supporting us in those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeanette, what are your thoughts on what protect Black women means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love what Charnel said about protecting Black women being mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. I think the phrase protect Black women is all encompassing. There's so many different ways for us to be protected because unfortunately society does I would say acts as a predator to a lot of us when it comes to those areas. So I think about like the disproportionate rates of um, fatality during childbirth that Black women kind of currently have, and other disproportionate health causes that causes infertility. So protecting our uterus, number one. I think when we even go on that, with protecting the uterus, what does that mean? I think it also means shielding Black women from sexual assault and abuse. And I think that has a mental impact, just the traumas of the world that we see on a day-to-day basis of Black men, women, and children being slaughtered on the news. Protecting our mental health is incredibly important, so we have the strength to go out and do what needs to be done. I think protecting us from an economic lens of making sure we're being paid equitable amounts in the workforce. And I think also from a societal lens of simply standing up for Black women, taking our side, believing us when we say something was done, advocating for us, triumphing us, spreading our joys, instead of condemning us. I think all goes into protecting Black women.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with both of your guys' points. Wesley, I'm curious to hear what you think about what the definition of protect Black women means to you.
Yeah, we have to, as a Black man, we have to be supportive of Black women. With myself being working in the public health field before, when we look at some of the health disparities that Black women face, we as Black men have to understand some of those health disparities, and we have to understand how can we be a strong advocate to our Black women. How can we, a lot of times, a lot of our Black women are the foundation and the strong rock in the family. How can we be an assist to those Black women? How can we make sure that Black women is being loved, Black women is being protected from violence, like we like the previous panel talked about, sexual assault protection. How can we protect Black women from verbal protection? Verbal abuse. How can we advocate for Black women, Black women in a workspace? When we look at the pay gap between women, and then when we look at the pay gap between Black women is greater than the pay gap between white women. How can we make sure that when we're in a workspace that we're advocating at every step, advocating at every way for Black women? How can we center Black women? We have to center Black women in every single thing we do when it comes to policy making in our community, when it comes to organizing, when it comes to within the school system, putting Black women first and highlighting Black women.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You all kind of touch on this a little bit as we move into our next question. We know that the Black community in general has been under siege on different fronts for centuries. What are some of the unique challenges that Black women face and have had to navigate in the midst of this struggle? Okay, yeah, sure. Now we can start with you.
Okay. It's funny. I was so hyped when you asked this question. Well, when I read this question, because I just did an event yesterday at Grand Valley, and we were talking about the imposter syndrome of Black women when you're going at a PWI, to be exact. So again, like I went to Grand Valley. So I remember being in a class and I was the only Black girl, feeling uncomfortable to speak up. And I feel like as women, as Black women, we're under a microscope. We can't wear our hair a certain way. You know how frustrating it is to walk into work with my hair natural and, oh, can I touch it? No, you cannot touch it. You can look at it, but you cannot touch it. And then the next day I come in with some braids and, oh, your hair wasn't that long the other day. As Black women, we can do that. But why is that such an issue for you to have to bring it up? We can't speak the way that we want to speak. We have to talk a certain way and in code switch. That is exhausting. We can't dress how we want to. And another thing is the challenges as Black women is when we are outside and we're hanging with our girlfriends and we're wearing, our shorts, our crop tops, whatever, and men feel that they can say whatever they want to say to us based off of our presence. And knowing that a lot of times it's coming from our Black men or a white guy, it doesn't matter. But as women, we face so many challenges as we enter this world. And I just feel as though, going back to the first question, that I wish people would stand up more for that in solidarity and say, hey, like, yes, she may wear her hair natural, but that's not up to you to judge her based off of that. So for me, those are the few challenges I feel as a Black woman that I face on the regular.
Absolutely. I definitely agree, Charnel, with your points. Jeanette, what about you? What is your perspective?
I 100% agree with everything that Charnel brought to the table. Specifically, I want to piggyback on the level of exhaustion. It's interesting because it's like we're all running the same race of life, but no one talks about the weight, the baggage that Black women have to carry on their shoulders daily that make that race just a little bit more difficult. Whether it's the microaggressions that Charnel pointed out with commentary on your hair, something that's just as simple as it grows out of my head is a discussion point or needs to be ridiculed, is, as she put, exhausting. Furthering that, I think that difficulties for Black women, I think right now in the era of social media, the beauty standards are very discouraging. Growing up, we've been told that Blackness was unattractive. Now Blackness is a trend. That really messes with the psychology of a woman and what it means to be beautiful, as well as our right to expression. I feel that everything a Black woman does, if she has some sort of presence in the media, is scrutinized to the highest or umph degree, in the media, but also in the workplace, but also in dating, and also in every part of what it means to be a citizen. A Black woman kind of gets scrutinized a little bit more. So I think those are silent killers that add pressure to us and add stress. And we know that stress is the root of most diseases. So it makes sense why we have such disproportionate rates when it comes to high blood pressure, diabetes, all these other things, because we're also carrying mental baggage that a lot of people don't have to worry about on their everyday lives. So I think all of that's an impact. I think also right now there's a current wave of Black women who want to get into entrepreneurship. So supporting us. I think that sharing more knowledge for Black women to where we know all the things that need to be done so we can have sustainable businesses is important too. So I think it's all encompassing, and it's really sad how every way of life there's something that adds to our plate.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Last person, can we get Wesley? What do you think some of the challenges that Black women face? I know your perspective is going to be a little bit different.
I just want to, as a Black man, just always um, make it a safe environment where other Black women can just express, how they feel. And I really appreciate the panelists just talking about some of their experiences that Black women face. I think, speak a little bit when it comes to like hair discrimination, when it comes within the workspace or just within spaces in general. As a Black man, I do think that we have to point out that, hey, if we see something around hair discrimination or, some of our non-Black or non-communities of color counterparts, co-workers are kind of, talking particularly to our Black women about, hair texture and different things like that. We must say something about it. We must stand up for them, and we also must advocate for them. I will say that a lot of times, sometimes in the well, not sometimes, a lot of times within the organizing and political space and the political field, when you have a strong Black woman in leadership positions, a lot of times, a lot of people in society, just others, want to coin the person as the angry Black woman, when sometimes the Black woman is just walking within her leadership or just using her authority within the title, the position that she has. And a lot of times, if a Black woman is in leadership positions, we have to be in supportive of her. We also have to be advocating for her when other people feel that uh, the words that she's saying is sounds a little bit more threatening or whatever, but it's not really. She's just walking in her power and walking in her authority. A lot of times, look back at issues when it comes to our First Lady Michelle Obama, how a lot of times when 2008 and 2007, when President Obama was on the campaign trail, First Lady Michelle Obama was doing campaign events in Iowa, with President Obama, and a lot of media outlets portrayed First Lady Michelle Obama as an angry Black woman, and the media outlets and news outlets did cartoons about how we're going to have an angry Black woman in the White House and different things like that. When it's not even the case. Why does it always seem that when a Black woman is walking in power and authority, that they get stigmatized as being an angry Black woman? And so I just know sometimes within political spaces, that's one of the stereotypes in Black women that we see.
I think that's an excellent point. I do want to highlight one thing that Wesley said, and it's the phrase angry Black woman. And we're seeing that throughout all complexions, Black women being pictured as this angry woman. And I guess my question would be, how do you think that impacts young girls who are in elementary school or middle school growing up when they're expressing their emotion, but then they're immediately labeled as angry or just automatically going to the extremes? We can switch it up. Jeanette, if you want to answer first.
Yeah, sure. I don't mind jumping in. I think it has a really big impact, and I think it's multifaceted. I think number one, you're teaching women that they have to suppress themselves and be cognizant of tone as opposed to just being real and authentic. And when you teach someone to suppress and to dial down, you are slowly wearing away at their personality, their soul, and that could cause feelings of disassociation from self. I can't be my true self. So who am I? I think another impact is we're wearing away at the femininity of Black women. I think oftentimes Black women, we are so quick to be labeled hyper-masculine terms like angry, aggressive, or strong, or domineering, or all of these things, which really wears away at our femininity. And I think that that's hard to gripe with. And I think that Black women should have the same luxury of being viewed as soft and feminine and delicate as women of other cultures. And if we just so happen to want to speak up on an issue, it's not because we're angry, but it's because that issue is pertinent and we should be heard.
Yes, thank you, Jeanette, for sharing. Charnel, I know you unmuted as well. Would you like to add some thoughts to that?
Yes, I agree with everything that Jeanette just said, because when he said the term, the angry Black woman, I literally was like, oh my God, I hate hearing that when in the conversation of Black women, like, oh my gosh, she's so angry. And it frustrates me because when did a Black woman speaking up in a disagreement deems her aggressive or angry? Why is it that my white colleague, my white counterpart, a white woman can sit in a meeting next to me and say, I don't like this new policy, and oh, let's change it. But as soon as I say it, oh, I didn't like your tone. It was very disrespectful. And when that narrative is being put out there, we have our younger Black girls that are looking up to us and seeing like, well, if Charnel couldn't speak up, then I don't have a voice. And we begin to silence them at such a young age. However, with things becoming so progressive, we have to change that narrative. I always tell my students at school, my Black girls, like, listen, your voice is powerful. Don't allow anyone to take that away from you. Because when I was once their age, I didn't feel comfortable speaking up because I did not want to be known as being aggressive or being difficult or hard to work with. And those were things I worked hard as I got older because of my demeanor. And like Jeanette said, speaking the realness. I don't want to cut any corners because why should I? I'm proud of being that Black woman in leadership that's demanding certain things that my white colleague or counterpart will be able to do so. So to any Black girl that's watching out there today, don't ever feel like you don't have a voice and that you can't speak up or that you have to soften it up a little bit. And what Jeanette was speaking about, the masculinity, I see that all the time. And it frustrates me because you see it in social media. You see a woman that's wearing some gym shoes with a baggy shirt and she's speaking a certain way. Oh, she must be a lesbian. No, she may be a tomboy. She may be comfortable today. But why is it that when Black women do it, it's a problem, but when you see the Kardashians do it, it's fashionable? So it's just, yeah, it's a lot that goes into it. I keep going on, but I'm gonna just shut up right there.
Can I jump in for a second?
Absolutely.
Charnel, you made so many great points. But I think, I thought when I heard you speak, when you take someone's argument and try to make it personal, like, oh, you're just angry, you're just upset, you're making it personal, so you're watering down the complaint. The quickest way to silence someone is to try and make it a them issue versus a societal issue or whatever issue they're trying to bring up. So it's like, why not just hear us out versus putting a pause immediately by saying, oh no, you're just angry. It's like, so it completely disrupts and dismisses everything she wanted to bring to the table or advocate for.
Yeah, you both brought up some really good points. Before we move on to something you guys mentioned, Wesley, is there anything you would like to add? If we still have him, okay.
Was the question towards me? I don't know. I was having some technical issues.
No, it's okay. Just the previous question on how being labeled as an angry Black woman and how that impacts the younger generations.
Yeah. Can everybody hear me okay? Is it like a crackle noise?
We can hear you.
Okay. As my other co-panelist was speaking, sometimes, I'm trying to figure out the deeper root cause that has caused this thoughts and caused this type of behavior that's throughout our society and even in the workspace, and understanding dominance of just white supremacy, dominance of white men in workspaces, and just the dominance of white men in our white society, in every single thing we do, where back in slavery time and pre-slavery, a lot of white men will try to label, will try to defeminize the Black woman. They will always try to make the Black woman as this masculine individual or masculine person, when it's just really ripping the fabric off of what the Black woman actually is, and actually what the woman is to our society. And in order to do that, we just have to eliminate, we kind of have to rebuild the structure all over again. We have to tear everything down and just reproduce what, what society and what life should be. And that has to start with, Black women being at the table in the forefront in reproducing and recreating what society is. It is tremendously upsetting to know that, you know, one of my co-panelists mentioned that on how when she was younger, how she didn't feel comfortable. It is tremendously upsetting to hear that possibly we have other, young Black queens in our community that feels this uncomfortableness when they're just trying to speak their truth or speak who they are. And so, we have to kind of rebuild our society. We have to kind of take everything that we have learned or how our society have learned and just throw it away and just rebuild it with what we need as a community for as Black men and Black women.
Thank you for that, Wesley. I think that you all kind of highlighted on one particular point that I want us to kind of focus more in on, and that's the Black woman constantly being seen as masculine. Charnel said earlier, when Meg the Stallion had gotten shot, people instantly didn't believe her. And I think that there's a big aspect of colorism that plays into the fact of the angry Black women or protecting Black women, because if it were someone of a lighter complexion in Meg's situation, or if it was Taylor Swift, because they're the same height, it wouldn't be a factor of, do I believe her? It would be, let's get justice for her. So I guess what is your guys' take on colorism in the Black community when it comes to Black women? Sure, now we can start with you.
So yes, because I got hyped, because y'all know Megan Thee Stallion is like I love her. Like, she's the one that allows me to feel like I'm gonna be my authentic self. But it was funny that you had brought up like Taylor Swift, because I had saw a post on Facebook like a couple days ago, and they were like, colorism is Megan Thee Stallion and Amber Rose are the same height. However, Amber Rose is like, oh my God, she's beautiful, she's this and she's that. But then when it comes to Megan, she's ugly, she's built funny. We hear all of that. Colorism is such a serious issue that is like continuously happening today. I don't know if you guys are like into like reality TV as much as I am, but like Basketball Wives, this conversation of a Nigerian castmate, she's aggressive because she's speaking up and defending herself. Her name is OG. Whereas Evelyn, she has been on television for years throwing drinks on people, jumping up and slapping them. But it's okay for her. But when a woman of a darker skin complexion comes up and she's speaking up and defending herself without putting her hands on anyone, she's aggressive. And that goes to discredit all the, like, I think it was Jeanette, what you said, like Black women, now being Black is a trend. So it's like now, although being melanated is such a great thing, there's still some underlying issues with that, because you're still having them being talked about. And it frustrates me because it's like, Black is beautiful. No matter how light you are on the spectrum, how dark you are on the spectrum, being Black is amazing. And I wish that at some point we can get to that kind of that middleman, the middle agreements, like, okay, you may be darker, I may be lighter, but at the end of the day, we're still Black women. We're still magical no matter what. I remember when I watched like School Days, and that scene where they were having the breakdown between, oh, your hair is shorter than mine, or it's kinkier, and I have straight hair. It just bothers me, because all girls, like little young girls, are seeing that today. And I too was one of those. I may not be on the darker spectrum, but I'm in the middle. And I remember not feeling as pretty as the girl with the long, pretty hair that was light skinned. All the guys wanted her. So it begins to build like insecurity. And then on social media, when you see those comments, and I look up to Megan, I go in her comment section, I see, oh, she's ugly, she lied on Tori, she's this and she's that. It's like, wow. But you go to Taylor Swift page and she's amazing. So it's just colorism. It definitely, it controls that narrative of, should we even protect Black women? Because at some point they're going back and forth with one another about the color. Why should we jump in on that? And that's an internal oppression type of thing that's happening when it comes to colorism. So.
Thank you, Charnel. Jeanette, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think that issues like these are so deep-rooted in the trauma we experienced when we were enslaved. I think that this hyper-colorism approach was obviously something taught by Europeans to us, but simply because dark-skinned women or brown women or those slaves were working in the field just like men. So we were taught, if you are Black, you are required to do the same amount of manual labor as a man. Slave owners did not see a difference because they commodified us down to our labor. Black women were strong enough to work the field, so they did, just like men. And the only women who were allowed to be in the house were those of a lighter complexion, because oftentimes they were the descendant of the master who raped one of the women. So it goes to show that this narrative comes from European indoctrination. And it comes from the fact that they want us to believe, society to believe, the closer you are to white, the more feminine you are, the more privileged you are, the less capable you are of doing a man's job, right? Versus the closer you are to Black, you belong in the field. You have the same labor privileges. As a man, you're required to do the same work as a man. There's no, there's no slack. Women were in the slaves picking cotton while pregnant or with infants on their back. So the fact that they were woman enough to give birth did not prevent them from picking cotton, because in the slave master's mind, they were seen as labor producing and had to do the same as a man. So it's sad that these ideas have carried on to us. Even looking back, I think, what's her name? The girl who did the Yellow Bone is What He Wants song that was dating the baby. It's become, we've taken this indoctrinated nation and we've tried to make it trendy, or we've, as Charnel said, internalized it and made it a part of who we are and seen it as a badge of honor, when really before we were enslaved, the color of your skin didn't matter. So the more we keep these terminologies, the more we have this barrier within our community, the more we are perpetuating our enslaved mindset, and it's sad.
Yes. Wesley, what are your thoughts?
I just want to agree with everything what the other panelists have said. I think going off what the last panelist said, again, we have to kind of like the doctrine that Europeans have made over the years within our society. We gotta kind of like rip it apart. We gotta like rip it apart. I don't want to say just throw it away, but we just gotta throw it away because it's bad. It's bad teaching. It's bad indoctrine. It's bad policies. It's bad. It's bad society. So within terms, we're gonna create this. We're creating a bad culture because we're being taught wrong. And so, one of the things that we all can do is doing pop up uh, discussions like we're doing now in all of our communities, trying to reach as many Black people as possible, as many Black women as possible, as many young Black women as possible, and just tell them about their purpose in life. Just tell them about who they are. Just tell them and give them this image of what is supposed, what you were born to do and what you was called to do, not of a predetermined European society belief of what you should be doing or what your role in life. And so, I think that's something that we have to do. I think my co-panelist is really doing an amazing job. And, I just really want to commend them for their giving their experience and giving what they're experiencing throughout their day-to-day lives, and how can we improve on that.
Yes, I think all three of you have highlighted some very important points. In particular is the one where we're seeing in social media these Black features and Black styles that are being chosen as trendy. Whether we're seeing, cornrows being deemed boxer braids by the Kardashians, or larger lips, curly hair. How do you think that impacts young Black women, and also trying to maintain this Eurocentric beauty standard that's been deemed more beautiful? Charnel, if you wanted to start.
Yes. So when it comes to the, like what you said about when you look on social media and seeing this whole trend of where we're still trying to normalize the European standard, and what it does to the younger girls under us, it makes them feel it again, like how we said, silencing their voice. It makes them feel as though they can't be who they are, and it's ugly to have your natural hair. So when I started working at my job as a teacher, I started a month after I did the big chop, y'all. I was nervous. Although I was proud of having my natural hair out, I knew my students were not going to take to that, because they're used to seeing a Black woman with longer hair, with whether it's weave or a wig or whatever. But when they saw me embrace it with a smile on my face, with my head held high, oh, Miss James, like your hair is beautiful. I wish I could do something like that and feel confident. And I'm like, you can. When you are able to walk outside, although you know that is not the standard, and still be able to have that smile and have your head held high, that's that confidence that you were wishing to have. I said, because at my age, I never wanted to wear my natural hair. I always, right when I took my hair down, I had to get braids because of that standard, and because I didn't want people to look at me like, oh, her hair is nappy. She didn't do this, she did that. But I got to one day I was at work and I'm like, you know what? Forget all of that. I'm about to cut my hair off and I'm about to rock this shortcut. And it was because I knew that with all the young girls looking at me, they would be like, oh my God, and Charnel can do it, Miss James can do it, I can. Even though I still have my suit, I'm still working on, they feel as though they have to cover it up with their, with their weave and having it all the way down to their butts. And it's like, you don't have to do that. I mean, you can if you want to, but we are born with features that women are paying to have. But we don't have a lot of people like us that are speaking into those young girls and letting them know that it's okay to be Black and to celebrate things that may not be accepted. Societal expectations play a major role in today's society, especially like with your mental health. Because when you go on social media and you see these girls that you wanna look like, it mess with you. It makes you feel like you're ugly, but you have to keep speaking those positive affirmations to yourself to say, you know what, I am beautiful. My beautifulness may look different to someone else, but it doesn't take away from me being beautiful. So that's something I feel like, although the younger generation, they may have that feeling of I'm not pretty enough, I just want them to, I'm hoping this is touching one of them saying you are, and be you, and forget societal expectations, because they not all that. The people that create it. So embrace it.
Yes, I think, Chanel, there's something very powerful about you being in that high school setting where you're able to instill, natural hair is beautiful. You are beautiful just the way that you were created. Um, Wesley, what is your opinion on Eurocentric standards and Black features being considered trendy?
I think we gotta give, you know, Black people credit. We are the culture and we are trendsetters. Our culture is spread it out throughout every parts of this world, but people just got to give us credit. When you look at the Kardashians, I can't keep up with them. Kylie Jenner, I think it was a challenge a few years ago. Might have been like a Vine challenge or something. Shows my age about Vine, that on how because Kylie Jenner did something, had surgery where her lips were more fuller than other European or non-Black women features. It became trendy. It became a trendy topic where other people start doing this trend. Other people started getting surgery to get their lips to look like this, or to get their features to look like this, and it kind of put her on a pedestal as Kylie Jenner knows makeup, or Kylie Jenner knows fashion, or whatever. And then when you look back at it, over time, Kylie Jenner is like the youngest, billionaire in history, all off of um, society deeming her as the go-to individual for fashion, or go-to individual for culture. But in reality, um, we have to give Black people credit. We have to give credit to Black women, give credit to Black men, because we are the culture. We set the culture. We set the standard, and people just follow it because that's who we are. It's just within our God-given abilities that um, people look, other people look at us as, oh, that's a Black man, that's a Black woman. They have something very trendy on. I want to do that. I want to be that. As a kid, me as a kid, I looked up to King Griffey Jr. and Michael Jordan. People wanted to be like King Griffey and Michael Jordan, not just Black men or black boys, but everybody want to be that. Even when you look at Serena Williams right now, the when we look at the type of woman Serena Williams is, people want to grow up to be Serena Williams. And so when you understand that we are the culture and we set the standard, and people just, people just follow, but they have to give us our 2 cents. They have to give us our credit, you know, when we're typing papers or writing papers, we have to do citations, give us our citation, give us our credit, give us our props. And so I think in society, that's what we have to do.
Yes, Wesley, I think you brought up a good point. Profiting off of Black looks and Black experiences is very common that we're seeing within society. Jeanette, if you wanted to add your thoughts on Black features being trendy and Eurocentric beauty standards as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just like to first and foremost say, do whatever you want. As a Black woman, wear your hair how you want to wear it, wear what you want to wear, look how you want to look. Like, I think it's important for us um, to liberate ourselves from the false narrative that society constantly puts on us. For me, when I think about my own personal journey, I went from wearing braids 24/7 in middle school, high school, because that's the only thing I really knew what to do with my hair. It was consistent and long, but it took out my edges. So I feel like oftentimes we see our hair as work or something to be covered up, or just certain parts about Blackness in general, we view it as something to change. When you think about makeup trends, let me contour my nose, okay? Let me overline my lips. So all of these things, I think the pressure is there, the pressure is real, but I love that a lot of women are standing up and saying, no more. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to embrace. I'm no longer going to feel shame in doing what makes them happy. And I think that looks different for each woman, and that's the beauty of it, because there's beauty in diversity. So even with my own progression, as mentioned, middle school, high school, I always wore braids. I went to college and I wore tons of lace fronts. And then when I moved back home, I'm now locking my hair. So for me, it was just a matter of whatever I want to do, I'm going to do. And if anyone has a comment about that, I bet they won't say it to my face. And if they do, it's going to be a teachable experience for you. Because I think now we're at this point in time where we're aware of why the influence is there. So many of us have been wounded by disparaging comments, by family members, by lovers, by et cetera, of wanting to change and commodify what it means to be Black and beautiful. But when it's said and done, we don't have to do anything that we don't want to do. So I love that there's this movement of liberation of women wearing their natural hair, not wearing makeup or wearing makeup, wearing wigs, lace fronts, extensions or not, wearing braids or not. I think that it's unique to the woman and it's our own journey. So I love that when it comes to white people capitalizing or other cultures in general, because it's even surpassed whiteness, but the world capitalizing on Blackness. As Wesley said, it is extremely discouraging, but I also think that now is our time to capitalize on us. If you're wearing your hair natural, make products, start selling it. If you are into beauty, create your own beauty line. Like, I think now's the time for us to take claim and re-own and rebrand the things that they've taken for ourselves to generate money back into our community. So I think liberating yourself to do what you want with your own body is important, and then capitalizing in our own way on the things that they've stolen from us.
Yeah, Jeanette, you brought up some amazing points. It's great to see that, you also had that natural hair progression that I see that all three of us are rocking. Just to switch gears a little bit, a lot of time we praise Black women for how much abuse that they can and have endured, how much strength they have, and how much emotional labor that they provide. Could you give an explanation as to why you think this is a harm to Black women as a whole? Whoever wants to go first. Wesley, if you want to start.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of times we praise Black women for how much abuse they endure, and how much strength that they provide for the Black community. Can you give an explanation as to why this is so harmful to Black women?
I think anytime we praise trauma is harmful. Anytime we praise something that, you know, everybody have different traumas, and we have to understand, um, we should not highlight or spotlight trauma. We should heal trauma within everybody and with every individuals. And so we have to create a culture within our community and with our society where we're not automatically um, capitalizing off of Black women's trauma. You know, we have to, again, as a black man, I have to be in a position where how can I advocate for Black women? How can I be supportive and just use um, just always being supportive of Black women, not always highlighting their trauma, understanding their trauma, and understanding how can we help heal their trauma, and figuring out how can we create a safe environment where they can, when they're, when they're ready and safe to talk about their trauma, how can I create that space, create that environment? I just think that we shouldn't always just feel like we need to capitalize off of the bad experiences, or even just really not understanding that everybody has trauma. Everybody have to deal with their trauma in a different way, and we have to understand that.
Yes, thank you, Wesley, for giving us your perspective. Jeanette, would you like to share as well?
I think you cut off a little bit. Who did you want to go next?
Jeanette, if you're able to share next, that'd be great.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. Yeah, I think that oftentimes a lot of Black women were told to work. If you don't work twice as hard, someone will take your position, be the trailblazer, be the change you want to see in the world. And it's exhausting. And, I see a lot of my friends, myself included, suffer from burnout, exhaustion, and just fatigue. And it comes and it hits you out of nowhere. But when you've been told to just grind, 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 work, 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 there comes a point where you can't do anymore. And even that was something that was passed down to us through enslavement. Work till you can't, do till you can't. And that's just so sad. And it's really a health concern. You can't be your full self to your family, your loved ones, your job when you're exhausted. It's just not going to work. Your body's going to give in. And I think it also contributes to why we have disproportionate rates and a lot of health issues, other than obviously the institutional discrimination and things. You could go on and on when you talk about the healthcare system. But I do think it's also because we're exhausted. I think we need to encourage more Black women to say no, and not take on, the weight of the world. I think oftentimes people want to make us into their beast of burden. Like, oh, Jeanette can do it, or, oh, this person can do it, that person can do it. Yes, a lot of us are extremely kind-hearted and willing to serve, but don't put stress and pressure on us that you wouldn't on anyone else. Don't put something on a Black woman that you wouldn't want someone to put on you. And I think that makes a difference. So I think definitely we need to say no and also set boundaries, and learn what are our deal breakers when it comes to love, when it comes to career, when it comes to family. Where do we draw the line? And I think that reinforcing that it's okay to have those boundaries. Having boundaries does not mean that you don't love someone. Having boundaries doesn't mean that you're a bad employee. If you want to take a day off, take that day off. And I think in other cultures that didn't have the large industrial slave complex as America, like Paris and European countries, they work to live, not live to work. They prioritize their self-care. They prioritize their leisure, their wellness. In America, we struggle with that. We live to work. We put all of our time and energy into that. So I think that a movement of, hey, Speak up, set your boundaries, take autonomy for your life, say no when it's needed, walk away from something when it's needed, change career paths if necessary. And all of that's important. Last thing, I don't want to hog the mic too much, but I also think as Black women, we're pushed to be the hero oftentimes. And so then you have tons of Black women who oftentimes feel like they have to be the one to end mass incarceration or end these societal issues. And they're pushed in career paths that they didn't even want to do. And so they're forced and overworked and laborized and all these things because we've taken on the guilt and pain of the world when there's there's the ability to serve in every career. There's social justice in every field. So I think encouraging Black women to know what you want to do. If it's being a teacher, you're touching students, you're helping students in a way that's magnificent. If it's being a doctor, you're helping the healthcare system. If it's being a business owner, you're revamping the economy. If it's being a veterinarian, there's just so many things for a Black woman to do in the world that I think not pigeonholing ourselves and once again setting boundaries and knowing when to say no is needed.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, setting boundaries are so important. It's easy to have a willingness to serve that can be easily taken advantage of. I know, Charnel, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I will say Jeanette and Wesley both said amazing things, but the part that stood out for me was Jeanette speaking on how Black women are often looked at as heroes. Girl, that is so true because Black women have to be the ones to save the day all the time. And the only thing I could think of was the Jordan Peele's movie Us. I don't know if you guys ever saw that, but when she had to literally fight off although she was the reason for all that stuff that happened. Anyway, but her husband, he failed and he couldn't do what he had to do to protect his family, but she had to stand up and say, you know what, I got this. You don't get to make any more decisions. Black women should not always have to do that. I feel as though we should have our time where we're able to rest and allow you to guide us. There's nothing wrong with a Black woman saying, you know what, today I'm going to let you take the lead. And it goes back and forth where a man should be able to let his woman lead. But when it comes to Black women, we are always the forefront for every single thing. And it leads to burnout. And when it comes to burnout, then your mental health and that's what I'm speaking on when I talk about the mental part of protecting Black women, making sure you're checking in with us because we are walking every day fighting battles internally and externally because of all the societal expectations that we have. I remember I was on a live with this guy and he was like, I don't feel like Black women have it as hard as Black men. And I'm like, whoa, that's the problem right there. There's no such thing as one gender having it harder than the next. We're all fighting the same fight. However, Black women is the most neglected person in America. We're not often thought of. Like Jeanette was saying, we're often, oh, they got it. They're used to this. And it goes back to slavery. So I say all that to say, as Black women, take those breaks. If you have a job, PTO is there. Go ahead. The job will be okay without you. And when it comes to school, take a break. That degree is going to happen, but we need you here. We need that mental health to be intact so that when you get into your career, you're able to do what you have to do mentally and healthy. So
Yeah, thank you, Charnel. I think you brought up some really good points. Burnout is extremely common, so everyone make sure you're taking those mental breaks. We are going to start to wrap up in a little bit. I know we are almost hitting our time limit, but I do have one more question for you guys. What responsibility does the larger Black community have in protecting Black women, and more specifically, what responsibility do Black men have in the care of Black women? Wesley, if we can start with you.
Thank you for that question, and again, this is just an amazing panel. I just really appreciate everybody creating a space where we can talk about these issues. Again, I just think that going back, understanding that sometimes we Black men have to be there. Black men has to show up. A lot of times we have to say in our community, show up and show out. Black men has to show up for Black women, no matter what. Um, you know, one of the things that is so deeply terrifying and deeply upsets me is like the whole Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez on um, how sometimes our society and how sometimes Black men, um, you know, is taking up for Tory Lanez. Sometimes in a situation like that, um, we have to understand that we have to support our Black women, no matter what. We have to uh, uh, be um, be their blind spot when they don't even know it. We have to understand, and we also have to support them. We have to create an environment, create a space where they can feel like they can talk to us. A lot of times, Black men says that Black women just don't know how to talk to us or something like that. No, we got to create the space where they can talk to us. We got to create an opportunity where Black women feel safe, where they can talk out their problems with us. And I think that's one of the things that Black men needs to do. They need to listen, um, and they need to create that space. They have to um, sometimes they have to step aside and just uh, and advocate for them, and also if it's within a workspace or professional setting, they have to take up for Black women as well. If they see something that's not right, then say something. That don't just set it as office space talk or something like that. No, check that individual if somebody is talking out of terms or talking out of line towards Black women, and that's period. Check, and that's just what I feel that Black men should do. I have some other things, but I'll just save those for closing.
Okay. Thank you, Wesley. I think being an advocate is a very crucial aspect of protecting Black women when it comes to Black men. Charnel, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I think Wesley had made a very powerful statement when he mentioned how, of course, men have to show up and show out. But when he said that, oh, they don't know how to talk to us, I think that is really the issue right there. Black men not listening to what we're feeling, and they automatically have this conversation. Oh well, she's hard. She's hard headed. She always has something to say, and how can I support her? Well, if you take the time and just listen, not listen to respond, but listen to understand what the Black woman is saying to you, then you will be able to be there in support. Again, we just need that solidarity because, to be honest, there's some group of Black men where I don't feel protected. And that's kind of hard to say because as Black women, we ride for our Black men. We're always there for you all. So we just want the same reciprocation when it comes to when you see something happening that you know is not okay and you speaking up, whether it's your homeboy, your boss, your cousin, whoever, and just saying, hey, that's not okay. She's a Black woman. When you see a woman walking and she's getting catcalled and you hear her being called the B word, say, hey, that's not cool. That's just what we need. We just need men to just, speak up, show up and show out. And I think that is the perfect way to end this event, is make sure men are actually showing up and showing out for us. So.
Yeah, you also had some great points, Charnel. Lastly, Jeanette, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I think Wesley and Charnel did a really great job advocating for that question. I feel once again, just make it personal to you. I think oftentimes when we talk about oppression, oftentimes we could talk to macrocosm and forget the microcosmic work of your own personal sphere. Protecting Black women means not calling the women that you know out of their name. It means checking to make sure that the women in your personal sphere have gotten home safe if they're walking late. It means if you have a family member that's visiting the doctor, maybe going with her and being an advocate on her behalf when she's speaking to the doctor, to make sure her voice is being heard. There's so much we can do in our personal life that makes a difference. And I think sometimes when we talk about oppression, we forget uh, our own responsibility for protecting Black women in our own life, our own influence. I think for Black men, lead by example. Be what you want to see in others. Show others through kindness and compassion. Don't tear our queens down. If she's doing something that doesn't meet your standard, don't ridicule and make fun of her for it. Show her through love and compassion how to better herself. In the gender wars, I think oftentimes when we have these discussions, people are so defensive. It's, oh, well, as Wesley said, Black men have more trauma than Black women. Like, why is that even a discussion? If we're both experiencing trauma, that should be enough. There's no trophy for being oppressed. So I think unifying changes the narrative in our personal lives. Post more things that show Black love, that show kindness towards Black women, that show Black women being beautiful no matter the shape of her body, her hair texture, or her skin complexion. Be that change. Show that narrative on your own personal platform. I think, we could get mad at the media, but if you're sharing posts of the Eurocentric woman, you're a part of the media. So leading by example makes a really big difference. And just making this fight personal to our own lives.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Thank you, Jeanette, for sharing your thoughts. We are about to wrap up, but does anyone have any closing remarks that they would like to share before we end this discussion?
I just want to share something. A lot of times we talk about being able to wear our hair natural. We, I laugh a little bit because we got 4 people on this panel on this call wearing their hair natural. Unfortunately, I just don't have any hair. That's unfortunate, but it is legislation that's happening in the community called the Crown Act, and the Crown Act is something that protects employees in the workspace from hair discrimination within their communities. The Crown Act stands for creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. Here in Michigan, a few days ago in Ingham County, that's Lansing resides within Ingham County, they passed a resolution. They passed the CARE Act resolution in their county, which passed and basically protects all in the public employees in Ingham County from hair discrimination. And we have to advocate for resolution policy in all of our communities. It has been introduced at the state level. It has also been introduced at the federal level. California was the first state to pass the Crown Act, and so when we talk about hair discrimination, if we are experiencing hair discrimination, how can we call our elected officials and say like, hey, I'm experiencing this within my workspace. I feel as a constituent within your community or within your district, I want to be protected. I feel extra protected when I don't have to fear from hair discrimination within my workspace. So call your local elected official, ask them to pass the Crown Act within your community. That's the last thing. And also, always advocate for us. Advocate for Black women. Advocate for Black men. Understand we're all in this fight together.
Yeah, thank you, Wesley, and thank you for bringing up that Crown Act. That is very important to today's community. Charnel or Jeanette, do you have any last remarks?
My last remark would just be continuing pushing this narrative of protecting Black women, and also protecting your well-being while doing so, because when you're doing the work of advocacy or activism, it can get exhausting. So make sure you're caring for yourself, but all in all, just make sure we are unifying our community, because when they see it, our counterparts see that it's broken, they feel that's a way for them to come in. So continue to just unite one another, whether we're hosting events together or continuing having events like this, and just pushing that narrative of making sure we're protecting all of us. So.
I just want to say thank you all so much for having me today. This has been the highlight of my day. Really great conversations. Above all, Black women, we are so beautiful. We are so intelligent and we are so helpful. I would just say for anyone out there, if you know a Black woman, share some love to her today. Tell her thank you for the things that she's done that may have been unnoticed or without compliment. I think love goes a long way. Also, for our Black women, make sure you're taking your vitamin D and iron.
Thank you, both Charnel and Jeanette, for your last remarks. And thank you guys for joining this panel and contributing your opinions. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day, and hope you have a great rest of your night.